5 minutes to initiate and kickstart this type of activity, as we are all entering a new era, it seems. And under the virus crisis that globally is affecting all of us, we are team working to enable this type of cooperation under the Indo-Israel Agricultural Project to be a cooperative and cooperation that will really evolve and continue to produce beneficial tools to the farmers. So in this regard, I want to take a couple of minutes before I hand it over to Gilad to discuss a few points. This type of interaction that we are heading towards now, the Zoom conference call, is a tool that we want to continue to bring knowledge to your benefit and from you to the farmer. So in this regard, our objective is to continue the work plan of the centers. Naturally, all of us, including the center and the team that is running the centers of excellence, are not working as it was working a week or two before the lockdown. And my emphasis is that the work plan should continue. It should continue in terms of 5 levels of the center. We need to identify how to continue the nursery management. We need to make sure that the canopy in the demonstration plot in terms of irrigation, fertigation, plant protection will continue and will be done in the best way. And finally, to make sure that the yield in the date orchard, the pomegranate orchard and the mango orchard and the vegetables will continue to produce. And here, I imagine we are all facing different type of challenges. So what I'm encouraging you is to approach and to tackle these challenges. You can transmit them to me and to MASHAV and to MIDH, and let us together overcome challenges that definitely are already there to manage such centers. In addition, this month in April, we want to finalize the first step of Villages of Excellence. This is a decision from our steering committee last June in 2019. And Villages of Excellence, currently, the concept paper was done and shared with 10 states in India. And we want at this stage for the states to identify 150 villages. And these villages are already quantified for each selected center. It is not for all centers, but selected ones. This initiative, we definitely want to continue to promote it, although the situation is very challenging. So these are the 2 points. One, let us make sure the centers are continuing to be active, and any challenge that we have, let us address it together. I am at your service to help you to overcome these challenges. And the second is a way forward of the cooperation between Israel and India, Villages of Excellence. And this is more a director level initiative, and we will work with all directors to make this happen. So these were the points I wanted to share. At this stage, I want to hand it over to Gilad Marek, which is our vegetable expert that visited India just a couple of months ago. So thank you very much, Gilad, for taking this activity and leading this webinar. And please, Gilad. Gilad, I cannot hear you.
Gilad, you have to unmute yourself.
Yes. Yeah. Now you can hear me?
Yes.
Okay, so first of all, I wanted to tell you all, thank you for having me. Dan, thank you very much for inviting me to this webinar. It's always a pleasure to have the challenges from MASHAV, and I really like to take a short moment just to be thankful for and appreciate for this project of yours, which is very impressive. And I really, for me, it's an honor to take, even if it's a very small part of it. Now it's a challenging time, I think, for all of us, and I want to tell you a little bit about myself. I started my career as an agronomist in the extension service of Israel government Ministry of Agriculture. And I believe that I studied the professionality and the method of working as an extension and as someone that share information and knowledge with the growers. I think I learned it from the best, really. But from the other hand, I started to ask a lot of questions when I started more than 20 years ago. The ethos among the agronomists was that there is no option, or there is no better alternative from visiting the plot. They always told me that if some grower has a problem or has a challenge, the first thing you need to do is to go and to visit the field. And there is nothing best as visit of agronomist in the field. But even if we can, 20 years ago, we cannot even imagine the coronavirus and the challenge that all the world is facing right now. Still, I had some doubts and some questions, because yes, it's very good to visit in the field and to understand yourself and to get the info from the grower. This is a very good method, but I'm not sure, I'm not convinced it's the only one. And I would say, I will take it even one step ahead. I'm not even sure if it's the best one, because today, thanks for a lot of data source that we have, and a lot of sensors that are available right now, where sometimes we can have even a better results, or even a better, let's say, background that will help us to decide what to do, or to understand the plant appearance without visiting the plot. In these days, we just cannot visit the plot, but even if we can, I think it's a huge limitation, because then you can just guide several growers and that's it. So the lecture that I'm going to have right now, first of all, if you have any questions, so you can type it, as Dan mentioned earlier, you can type it in the chat, and at the end we will have a Q&A, a short Q&A session. And right now, I would like to start and to share my screen for a slideshow that I prepared, okay? Okay, can you see my screen good, in a good way? Dan, is the screen is on? Yeah.
Yes, Gilad, we see everything.
Very good. Okay, thank you. So let's start. First of all, this is the webinar that is going to be just because of the coronavirus, but I think it's good for even other times. So I hope you will have it and you can use it as you wish. And just for myself, I type the challenge is a remote agriculture knowledge transfer, how we can transfer knowledge without visiting physically in the plot. Sometimes it sounds like impossible, because if we are talking, well, in some cases it's very easy, because if we are thinking about just a plant disease or some insect, so it's very obvious that the farmer can just take a photo and send it over, okay? But this is something that is very understandable and no need to mention. I was thinking about the other aspects of the plant, let's say the physiological part, or other challenges like nutrition, something that even when we are visiting the site, it's not very clear for us how to give a good knowledge transfer or a good advice for the grower. So over here, I just wrote to myself the main thing that I'm doing when I'm visiting a plot that has some challenge, let's say the grower said that he feels that the plant is not developed so well. So the first thing, I just type for myself, what are all the things that I'm doing in order to understand and to give a good recommendation. So first of all, there is a simple data collection. First of all, I want to understand, even if I'm visiting the grower or even if I'm just have a conversation by the phone, first of all, I want to collect data. This is the first line. I'm collecting data about and obtain the information from the grower. I can ask, when did you plant this field? What happened ever since? How much do you irrigate? How much do you fertilize? Did you have some issues in at the beginning or the first establishment stage, or so on? All these questions that help me to understand what I should expect to find. Then the next step, just a second, I will add. The second step is the gaps. I want to understand the gap between our expectation or between what I expect to see and what I will find at the field. For example, if I know that 10 days after planting, if I'm digging in the soil, I need to find in a pepper plot or in a tomato plot at least 10 centimeters of fresh new root that already established in the local soil. And now I don't find it. I know that this is my gap. The gap is developing a root system. Okay, so for the second thing that it's very important to be accurate at is just to define what are the gaps. The third thing that I will try to focus in is the diagnosis. I want to know what are the causes and what happens in that lead to these gaps that I defined over here. Okay, sometimes it can be just a matter of climate. For the example that I gave earlier about the rooting, sometimes root system does not develop very well just because of soil preparation. Sometimes the reason can be that the grower uses chemicals in order to fumigate the soil, and now it's not, and it didn't leach it from the soil. So that can be the reason. So I'm trying to define and to understand what are the causes. Then the next step, I will find, still it will be in my mind, in my head, I will find a solution. Usually this solution will be based on a prior knowledge, and then I can adapt a solution. Okay, sometimes I have, from my background, I have the same problem that I'm defining right now. Sometimes it's something that it's quite new, but still I have another colleagues that I can talk to and just understand from our knowledge today what we should do in order to solve the challenge or the problem that we defined. The next step will be, I need to organize the solution that I'm offering in my mind and then to interpret it to the farmer in a simple words, in a way that it's very easy for him to understand what exactly he needs to do. Now, there is, over here, we should just keep in our mind that it's sometimes we are taking a huge responsibility when we are offering a solution. I'm not talking about the cases if we did a mistake by the diagnosis. This is one thing, but even if we do want to just apply something that we are sure that this is the problem and this is the solution, still sometimes we can just miscalculate and give 10 times more fertilizer that we should, or if it's a treatment of leaching the soil with water. Okay, it sounds very simple, but if we are just explain it to the grower, but we didn't write it, and he just remember the different numbers and he just multiplied by 10, and that happens a lot, unfortunately. So that can be very harmful for the plot. So the guidance should be written, and they should be very, very accurate. And you yourself should be 100% convinced that every mistake that can happen, you just light it up in advance. Okay, and then the next step, the last one actually, it will be the follow-up. We need to determine together with the grower what are the parameters of success. Let's say if the simple example that I mentioned earlier, if we don't have an establishment of the roots or root system, we can decide that after 3 or 5 days, the grower needs to dig below 5 plants and to measure the root system. And if he find 10 centimeter, we succeeded. If he didn't find any, so it means that we need to research and investigate more in order to really understand. We just missed maybe the cause. It means that we need to go again to this stage and do it all over again. Okay. Now, when we are thinking, this is the method that we are acting upon it, even if we don't have challenges like right now. Like we can visit the plot whenever we like. We can investigate the grower by phone, but we also can go and visit the neighbor plot and to just get another impression. Okay, no limitation. But if we do have limitations, so look at all these stages, and actually you can see and you can find out that most of them, it's not relevant if we are able to go to the plot or able to meet the grower or not. Look, the gaps. It's something that if we are very well organized, so we can understand what we're expecting to see, and then the causes, usually it's from our background. The solution, also, this is something that we have from reading in articles or just our own experience or our colleagues' experience. Guidance is something that you can do without any problem, and of course, follow up. The only main challenge stage is this one, is the collecting the data and obtain information from the grower. This is something that sometimes you can just remind my story from the beginning, from the very well qualified agronomists that sometimes say there is nothing like visiting the plot. And over here, I'm asking again, is that so? For myself, I'm not convinced anymore. And actually, I did a career from just searching for a better alternative from just collecting the data by visiting the plot. And now I want to talk a little bit about monitor, because the best way to have database, which is not like emotions, it's something that you can just trust, that it's reliable and it's in number. It's monitoring. I have to tell you, to be honest, and to tell you my inner slogan, the thing that I'm carrying with me, these 20 years of trying to achieve better results in extension and in services for the grower. I want to transfer emotions into numbers. Okay, because sometimes, you know, there are legendary agronomists that they are very, very good, and they have, you know, story behind them that they can just have a very short look on the plot and they will know exactly which kind of mineral they need. Okay, this sometimes it's true, sometimes it's just a legend, but from the other hand, from my aspect, it's something that is it's a barrier. It's something that we need to transfer in these days, in our days, and this is the coronavirus is one of the proofs why is it important to do it all the time, just to have a data collection from far away without visiting the plot. So let's answer this question, why we need to monitor. So we need to monitor simply just because we want to react to the plant needs when we're talking about quantities of irrigation or quantity of minerals or quantity of whatever. The other thing is timing, because we want to be accurate in the timing, because the plant have several stages. Sometimes if you are going to react, but you are going to delay the reaction, you are going to miss the whole point. And the other thing, and the last thing is about the quality. Sometimes the difference between high or premium quality to low quality, it's just a matter of monitoring. If you will know in advance that you are missing something and you react on time, you will succeed. And if not, so you're not. Another thing for monitoring is to manage the crop. You know that a lot of crops, such as pepper, such as all the cut flowers, now it's also true to say it about the cannabis, which is an industry that is now very much developed. It's very important to manage the stress. Sometimes stress conditions, they are crucial. You have to have a stress condition in order to flower, for example. If we want to have flowering in a certain time, so that means that we need to manage the stress. If it's a salinity stress or drought stress or light stress or whatever, we need to manage it. In order to manage it, we need to monitor. We need to know what we have right now, and we need to know when we are going to get, or what is the point that we are aiming to. Another thing for saving, the reasons that we need monitoring is to save waste of energy and money, of course. And another aspect that we cannot neglect even in very difficult times like this is the environmental conditions or environmental values. We don't want to give extra water just because we don't have the way to monitor right now. We don't want to spray an additional pesticides just to make sure. We don't want just to make sure. We want to be accurate and precise and not pay even 1 penny. And also, we don't want to affect in a negative way the environment with our footstep that we are living as growers, as farmers, as an agronomist, actually, that gives them the advice. So now, when we are talking about the monitoring, okay, so when we are talking about the monitoring, you know, over here, I just took a photo, a very simple photo of a plot, an empty plot. And it looks like if you want to monitor, so there are only 3 things that are relevant. The first one is the climate conditions, and we will talk immediately what aspect of the climate condition we need to monitor. The second thing, which is very important, is the plant itself. And in 5 minutes from now, we will have a short discussion about it. And another thing is about the root system, what is everything that is below the soil. It can be the irrigation, the nutrition, fertilization, sometimes roots disease, or all the other aspects that can affect the plant nutrition and the plant development. So monitoring or data, today, if we're talking about the first aspect, okay, let's start. Now we're going to just talk a little bit about the climate aspect for monitor, the plant aspect, and the soil aspects. So if we're talking about the climate, today, thanks to the evolution of everything, even this industry had a huge gaps. And today, all these elements, you know, like 30 years ago when my dad was a farmer, so the only thing that we can afford to monitor was that simple thermometer. Now it is still relevant, but you know, it has some disadvantages besides the fact that it's very cheap, but still it is, you can just only see the point of right now. Sometimes there are elements that they can save you the maximal temperature and the minimal temperature. But today we have very simple and very cheap methods from all over the world. You can buy it online. You know, sometimes it's cost it's very, very cheap. If we're talking about climate, temperature, and relative humidity, if it's greenhouses, we can buy online with a data logger that costs, let's say, $20 US approximately. And this gives you a lot of information. And I want to give an example. For example, if you have a greenhouse of a certain plot, like let's say tomato, okay? So some of the plant disease that tomato suffers is certain conditions that also includes high humidity for several hours. So if you have a data logger with the thermometer and with the relative humidity meter that collect you the data, you can see every 24 hours from your website or from your telephone, you can just research and to see if you had the conditions that enabling this disease to appear. And if not, you can avoid spraying. You don't need to spray against disease that is not relevant. Okay, that's very, very helpful. Another example, just from temperature and from relative humidity. Let's say now if you have a farmer that is very far away from you, and he wants to know what is the reason for not having fruit setting in a pepper plot or in a tomato plot. So sometimes if he has this device and he can just share you with the information of what was the story of the climate inside the greenhouse, how many hours it was below a certain temperature. Sometimes we can see, for example, if we have pepper and the temperature is go below 16 Celsius degrees for 5 nights in a row, it means that the pollen is spoiled, and then you cannot have any pollination. Even if you have a terrific pollination, you won't have a fruit setting. Okay, so sometimes the only thing that you need to, the first thing or the most important thing that you can just get from farmer that is not here or you are not visiting his plot is just what was the climate story over there. Okay, another very important device that I really encouraging everyone to buy is a solar radiation meter. If we are growing in the greenhouses, you can just ask the grower. Sometimes if you have a very tall plant, and the grower will tell you by phone that he can see that the plants become very, very tall, but it doesn't have any flowering and it doesn't have fruit setting at all. So this is something that if he will give you, if he will share you the information, what was the radiation inside the greenhouse compared to the outside, you can easily calculate and to see that this is hethiolenthic conditions. And then it's very obvious that the plant will run and search for light instead of investing his energy in fruit setting and in flowering. Okay, just stays in a vegetative stage all the time without transferring it into the production stage. Okay, so these are very simple climate tools that will help you to get a lot of information from the grower that's located far away from you. And if you are going to just make them, the grower, make them aware of how important it is, they will invest some money to buy the most important techniques. This is, for example, just a behavior of 1 week in a certain plot in Israel. And you can see that these are very good conditions for a tomato crop. In this case, it's for pepper plot, but you can see that the maximal temperature is something like 26 Celsius degrees, and the minimal temperature is above 10. So I can see that in some cases over here, if it was regular bell pepper, it sounds like very nice conditions, but also they are not relevant for fruit setting. Okay, so this is something that you need to get your background information or background knowledge together with the conditions that you got from the grower. And in this case, if the grower asks, why don't I have fruit setting? So This is the reason. The reason is that every night you get below 16 Celsius degree for a very long period of time. It's more than 2 or 3 hours. So there is no way that the plant will have a good fruit setting. Another thing that you can just encourage the grower to invest in that will help a lot in order to collect the data and to have the monitoring from far away is just soil, very simple tools like you can buy it also online. This is the soil extractor. You see that over here at the bottom of it, you have a ceramic cap. This is a valve that you can just have a vacuum inside this device, wait for 1 or 2 hours, and then inside you will have a small quantity of soil solution. This soil solution you can just take and analyze with very cheap and very simple tools, like you can just analyze what is the pH. Sometimes it's difficulties of pH. You can have it on a stick like this that you can buy online and it costs almost nothing. If the grower is into it, you can just buy these devices that also cost some. This device, for example, costs $10 in the eBay or AliExpress or whatever. So that means that with this simple device of a soil extractor, if the grower do it on a regular basis, and just we will talk about how to collect data immediately, but this is the main thing that he can just collect and monitor on a weekly basis or twice a week or 3 times a week. It depends on the grower and in his abilities. Another thing is about salination. You know, sometimes the salinity increases, and then if we have some kit also that costs very cheap, you can just measure the chlorides inside the soil solution, and you can easily, if you have the data all the time, like every 2 or 3 days, you can just place it on the graph, even if you are very far away, and you can also have an alert that above. For example, in our case in Israel, it depends on the water quality. But in Israel, above 400 ppms of chlorides, we have an alert that it's too saline, and then we need to leach. Another test that you can do in a soil extractor, soil solution that you got, is to measure what is the nitrogen level. You just have sticks. Sometimes you can use these sticks for very long period. Each bottle of it costs something like $20, but it has inside 100 kits. So for 100 weeks you can use it. It's a lot. It just the grower need to dip it in the solution and then wait for 2 or 3 minutes, and then he has a scale on this bottle, and then he can realize you can realize from far away what is the level of nitrogen, which is one of the main elements, the essential elements for the plant. Another option, which is a little bit more expensive, is these kits of Horiba. There is also other companies that I can mention. It's HANA, and they have kits for field. And then you just need to have few drops inside, and then you get the information about the nitrate, about pH. They have also for calcium, potassium, not potassium, actually they don't have, they have calcium, potassium, not phosphorus, they don't have phosphorus yet, calcium and several other, magnesium, several other elements that you can use. It depends on the crop and what is most important in it. For example, if it's a grower that is into it and he wants to buy it, so I will encourage him, if it's vegetables, have the nitrogen and have the potassium. These are the most important elements. Some of them can also add the calcium, which is very relevant when we are talking about pepper and tomato. Another advantage of these kits, you see, first of all, I want to show you that this is, this is the system. We just go to a regular greenhouses. They are not sophisticated. This is a photo of a net house that is let's say, I think 300 kilometers from my house, and still I get information on a weekly basis, what happens in the soil inside. They have a soil extractor pump like this. They take it with the injector once a week, and they measuring all the elements that I mentioned. This is nitrogen, potassium, and calcium. And then I got the results. I'm collecting the results, and I have it on a dashboard. And then I can see the differences. For example, over here, if 1 week it was 1,200, and the next week it was 4,700, I know that something is wrong. It has too much fertilizers that the plant cannot uptake. Okay, so this is very intuitive, very simple, and you need to get the information. The first information I can supply it if you have a specific question, but usually you will have it in the literature, and all the internet is full of information. Okay, another equipment that in purpose I just brought a very, very old photo of it is the tensiometer. When we are talking about tensiometer, it's meter of the tension of the soil. As you all know, that we can measure our soil actual wetness or humidity, but another component that is more accurate and more easy to measure is the tension in the soil. Soil that is dry, when it dries, the tension goes up. It increases its tension. When it's saturated with water, it doesn't have any tension. So this tension is another equipment that you see that over here we have a ceramic cup. It was invented more than 100 years ago. Okay, it's very, very old and very simple, but it works. So we have a ceramic cup. Over here we have a tube filled with water, clogged, and then it's not open to the atmosphere. And then when the tension increases in the soil, so a small amount of the water from inside this tube will go out and increase the tension inside this tube. This is something that I can measure. But more important, you know that today we have a lot of equipment that is just connecting with wire or wireless to the Wi-Fi or to the internet. And then you can just transfer the data every 5 minutes from the soil of many, many plots directly to your cloud and directly to your computer or mobile phone. In real life, it looked like this. This is the box inside. These are the tensiometer. Over here, you can see boxes. Inside the box, there is a small cellular unit that transfers the data from everywhere. And then I can have from, in this point, for example, right now, I have 60 points in Israel that transfer this data to me. So I can just get whenever I want and to have an alert whenever I choose. And to understand what is the conditions of irrigation or tension or misigation in all the plots. And I can give a lot of advantages for my growers just by, you know, I'm sharing this data together with them. They have their own access and they can get the information from their mobile. I can get it from my mobile, and besides that, I can just have an alert in a certain point. For example, if I'm going above this level of tension, I want to have an alert to my phone. And then we can manage a lot of plots. As an individual, I can manage a lot of plots simultaneously. In the field, it will look like this. These are the tensiometer. This is the box, very, very simple. You get the data, you just put the batteries, and then you forget, even when you put it, you can forget about it for at least 8 to 10 months. The output of it, I don't want to take a lot of time to talk about it because I think you're going to have another session about irrigation, but eventually it will look like this. This is the tension unit. When the tension increases, it means that the soil becomes dry. Over here, it's irrigation, okay? Over here, I have samples. I have an examples of how we change irrigation activity. For example, over here, I have a big irrigation. This is huge irrigation. It's too big irrigation that I have the tensiometer in 2 depths. One of them is in 15 centimeters below surface, and the other one that represent over here by the green light, by the light green, is the deepest tensiometer, which is 30 centimeter. Over here in this photo, I can see that after this irrigation, all the water that I apply in this irrigation have crossed the 30 centimeter below the surface. That means that it was a huge waste of water, okay? The other irrigation at the same day was just, I gave a lot of irrigation and still some of the water went below the 30 centimeter, which means that they are not relevant for the crop, because the crop do not absorb water from this depth. So after one day, in the second irrigation, we just reduce some of it, and then you can see that the line is over here almost stay flat. Okay, so this is for data collection. Another thing that I don't want to waste time about it is the soil analysis. This is something that happens from far away. You can just ask the grower to deliver to the laboratory soil samples, and then you get the result, and then if you get the result, you can give the analysis. So this is very simple, but I thought it was important to mention over here as well. About these devices here, I wanted to tell you that they have two uses. One use is just to measure the soil samples. The other one is to measure the petioles. If we are taking the petioles early in the morning until 9 o'clock in the morning, usually, you can just use this garlic crusher to have some petioles solution into this device. And then if you are continuously doing it like every 2 days, every 3 days, you can have a scale, a graph. And then when the plant has too much or too less fertilizer, you will see it very, very fast. I'm going to finish in 10 minutes. Is that okay, Owa?
Yeah.
Okay. Another element that also you can just choose and then you can just monitor from far away is to use dendrometers. Dendrometers is an equipment, very simple equipment that is tied to the stem, or in some cases to the leaf, and it's measure how thick it is. Now you can get a lot of information. First of all, about the first info that you can get is about how big it gets in time. So you can see that in the stem, for example, if it's in the stem of a plant, so you can see how big it is compared to yesterday, and then you can have this trend, and you can realize and understand that the plant is developing. Another thing that you can get from it is another data that we call MDS, which is maximal daily shrinkage. If this is MDS, you can write it down and then search for it in the internet. This is a very powerful tool, because before you will see the tension increase in the soil, you will see the leaf or the stem start to shrink. When it's search for water and they are not available, it will have a very slightly shrinkage. But these tools are very sensitive, and the units are in microns. And then you can see in what time exactly it started to shrink, how much it shrinked, and also when it went back to regular activity. Now, if you have this pattern every day in the same hour, so you can just change from far away, even without visiting the plot, you can from far away just decide when is the right time for additional water quantity, or for, we call it technical irrigation. You can just add a very small quantity of water in order to help the plant to just straight this curve. Another use for dendrometer is fruit development. Well, this is obvious, okay? And another thing which is important for me, and I want to share a few slides very, very fast right now, is about how to look at the plant. I want to guide the grower to measure for me from far away. This is, for example, a rosemary plot that I'm guiding from very far away. This is from the south of Spain. But if the grower will send me a photo like this every week, I can understand more or less how much the plot grow, or what is the height of it, and when it's going to, I need to monitor and to decide when it's going to be ready for harvest. Okay, so if the growers, I have several plots like this, if all the grower do it in a very constant way, and they're just measuring the same thing, I know I have like a dashboard, what is the condition for every plot that I have. Okay, another example of measuring data without visiting the plot. I'm asking the grower to send this kind of photo, and I can count in 20 centimeter, how many branches do I have? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So I know that this considered as tight compared to other plots that have only 4. Okay, this is a tool, a very powerful tool that you with your grower together can create for every type of plant. In each plant, we have different values that we want to make sure that we understood. This is another example. Personally, I own a small company that give this kind of service to a seeds company, and this is a very simple tool. I have 20 plots of pepper in the southern part of Israel. Once in a week, I have a person that measuring, each grower measuring the plant height. And then I have this kind of curve. I want to understand if the plant is in this stage, which is a high vegetative development, or it starts to produce fruits and flower. Also, I can just measure, like I mentioned earlier, the solar radiation greenhouse in the greenhouse. This is the outside compared to inside. This is the percentage of penetration of solar radiation into the plot. And according to this data, I can give a lot of information for the grower. For example, I know that if he's below 70 in this stage, sometimes it's too stressful. And if the plant in this stage need a relief, so he can close a shade net, reduce the radiation, you see, for 2 or 3 weeks, give the plant the condition to relax, and then we will give it back to full radiation. Another measurement that we can do, this is all the plots together, and I'm counting the open flower in the pepper plant, open flower per plant on a weekly basis. And then I have like an average line. You see, like here, I have it in an average line. So then I have something that helped me to decide in certain plot, if the grower will call me and he will tell in this stage, I'm 50 days from planting and I have 4 open flower per plant. I know that this plant is in a high blossoming comparing to all the rest of the plots. So immediately, just because of regular collecting very simple data, I can understand exactly if the plant is acting as all the majority of the other plot or below or in a higher level. About another aspect, over here, this is an example of a curve of all the plots together, which I'm just measuring the calcium in the petioles. So over here, I just detected something about the whole variety. I realized that after 50 days, the level of potassium of calcium in the leaf reducing dramatically when the pepper starts to develop fruits. So over here for next year, I know that after 40 days or 30 days, I start to apply an additional quantity of calcium. And this is something that I did without visiting the plot. It's not because I saw the plot or I visited the site. It's something that I just had the data collection and organize it like this, and I have the solution. Okay, how to collect the data? I'm using personally. I love. There are a lot of methods that relevant. Usually I'm using a Google form. I'm just preparing a very simple Google form for all the growers. And then I have one big database that all the growers are filling it together simultaneously. And another element that, and how to communicate it to the growers. Also, we have two methods. If you have companies that you have the software, so you can communicate through it, like Fitech or like Mana or like Supplant, they have a place in the software that you can just communicate with the grower. But if you want to have the free tools, it's very easy to do it today with WhatsApp. It's very easy just to share a timeline together with the grower, you know, in a simple Google Calendar. I'm just adding some data for the grower and he will see it and react, okay? And just for the last thing I want to mention over here is I have, this tool is going to be presented in several weeks, but this is something that I'm using with an image analysis that now I can do from far away. I can just measure many plots. I can see the development of it, and I can just put it on the graph. And if I have all the graph of the same plot, not the same plot, a lot of plots together from the same plant or the same variety, this curve, this data are very powerful because then I can see if the plant developed well or not. Another aspect is this one. I can take 2 photos from the grower. This is something that, in my case, it's on a software, and it gives an alert from far away. But over here, you can just ask the grower to take one shot early in the morning. This is in 7 o'clock, and this is in the afternoon. Okay, the same plot from the same position, and I can see that the plant is wilting. And I know exactly in what time it started to wilt. And then I can just monitor and tell the grower to add another quantity of water in a certain time. Okay, if I will get it on a dashboard, I can have it as a data. And over here, the wilting, I can just read it as a data. Okay, I can read and I can have an alert to my cell phone or to the grower's cell phone. Okay, so these are not very simple tools, but still they are achievable. And this is something that you can just take, for example, I will give you an example. Over here, if you want to achieve this target, for example, you can ask the grower just to place his telephone at the same place every day, and just to have every day the same photo. So then if you just have it as a script, you can see this, okay? And then you can know if it goes well or not. Okay, so from my side, I think I have reviewed all the elements that I want to talk about. And now if you have several questions, I will be more than happy to answer.
Yes, there was a question regarding collecting information, and there's the need to build different formats according to the crops, right? Tomatoes, capsicum, cucumber, etc.
Yes.
Can you address this, please?
Yes, actually it's not just for every crop. Sometimes it's something that you can just share several crops together. For example, if it's you decide that you are going to greenhouse crops, it doesn't matter if it's cucumber or a pepper. If it's plant height, it can be on the same form. If it's open flower per plant, which is relevant for you, this is something that you want to understand, it can be on the same form. And then it's much more easy. That if you know, from my perspective, when we are talking about a lot of growers and we don't have the option to guide everyone personally, so we have to keep it simple. So usually, if for me, it works like this. I know that if it's certain crop and I know what is the height of it and what is the daily average increase of height, how many centimeter per day it increases, it doesn't matter if it's in the same form. It will be for cucumber, tomato, eggplant, and whatever. Okay, so it depends. The answer for you, it depends. If you are just keeping it very simple, like height, like open flower per plant, like a number of internodes, for example, per branch, these are tools that you can put in the same form. If it's very specific, like some organs that one plant has and the other not, like male flowering compared to female flowering. So of course you need to have a different form. Usually the growers, they are growing 1 or 2 crops. So usually try not to convince them to use 2 or 3 forms. Just use 1 if you can. Do you have another?
Right.
Yes.
Mr. Dan, would you like to?
Thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes.
So thank you very much, Gilad. I think it was a fascinating and very much to the point presentation.
Thank you.
So thank you for this. Thank you, Omer, for making all of this happen and concentrating all of the logistics of the call. I do have a few points I want to raise. I feel that this situation of COVID-19 virus can have one, at least, positive impact on us, which is it could act as a catalyst to bring us to a place where we are conducting knowledge transfer in a very efficient and a very widespread way. Something that we anyway want to reach. And this challenge that we are facing now can work as a catalyst, can make us go to this place in a faster way. So this is number one. I think if we want to achieve it in a sustainable way, I would recommend that we all work as a team. Not only Israel and India, SHM, MIDH and MASHAV, but also work together with the extension arms of the state and definitely work together with the farmers. And when we say the farmers, I think always starting with the progressive farmers that are usually bigger, stronger, more open to new ideas because they want to achieve the end result of more productivity and more income. If you start with them, they can set as a lighthouse to other farmers, and this is my recommendation. Secondly, all of the discussion at the end of the day, I want to remind ourselves, all the tools Gilad was presenting are in a toolbox. The tensiometers, the different sensors, the cameras are tools. They are not objectives. We are not growing cameras and we are not growing tensiometers. So let us not be confused in the way we are using it, because at the end of the day, these tools should have an end result of better productivity and better income of the farmer. So in this regard, let's keep it simple, work with progressive farmers, collect the information, communicate the information, and follow up on the information. So I think there are 2 levels. One is really let's identify which out of the range Gilad was presenting can make sense, which are applicable, which we can actually implement. And then it is your leadership. Every project officer should take a leadership and actually implement a roadmap on how to implement, how to identify the progressive farmers, and how to create a comprehensive solution that will take the knowledge and feedback it to the farmer, and then maybe even go back and make the lessons learned to increase the efficiency of how we are using this layer. But to finish with what I started, I think this is a very important layer that we want to implement. And I feel this situation we're facing can have a positive impact on us, because it will make us work faster and make us do things that in a normal way would take us 1 year. Here we can do it in 2 weeks. So this is my input. Again, I want to say a great thank you to MATC, from Oded heading the center, to Omer that ran this discussion today. Thank you very much. Your initiative and your teamwork with us made this happen. I want to tell all of us that now we are working towards having more webinars. So for you, our Indian partners, please feedback how this discussion was for you. If you feel it was good, tell us. If you feel we can improve, tell us in what. We are looking to do more webinars on fruit orchards, on irrigation, fertigation specifically, and more topics that could be relevant, but we always start with a demand-driven. So if you have specific areas that you want to focus on, please let us know. You know how to reach us. And Gilad, a big thank you to you. It is always a pleasure to teamwork with you.
Thank you, the same thing.
So thank you all, and Omer, with this I finish.
Thank you very much, everybody. I only would like to remind that it wasn't only me. We're a team here at MATC. As you can see, we're 3 here. Mr. Oded, Ms. Ora, and thank you everybody for attending. We would love to see you in future unions. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.